According to the 2017 U.S. Music and Year-End Report, it states that 24.5% of all music out of 40 plus genres was hip hop. Good afternoon. My name is Howard Miller. No, good morning. My name is Howard Miller. My research question is, from the 1980s, how have hip hop artists positively influenced the representation of Black Americans in United States society? My argument is hip hop artists have positively influenced the representation of Black Americans in United States society over the last 40 years in education, business, and politics. Hip hop artists have positively influenced the representation of Black Americans in education through educators and all in school districts. As we've seen by this, according to James Miles' Why Education Needs Hip Hop TED Talk, he states that most young people know every lyric to Old Town Road but don't know the Bill of Rights. What this quote is saying is that majority of people, like the majority of the youth students, only know certain like pop culture, but they don't know the majority of. They don't know. He is a professor at NYU. He motivated by what James Miles says is he promotes hip hop in education. He says that by using hip hop, it motivates these Black American students to do well in school by making a song about the Bill of Rights, which allow these students to have motivation and connection to the education, which will help them perform academically. Additionally, as we've seen by Dr. Christopher Edmund, as we've seen right here, the guy with glasses, he's talking to some high school students in Harlem. He's a professor at the University of South California, and he is also a proponent of hip hop in education, such as James Miles was. As Dr. Edmund promotes STEM education, and he says that it's important to have hip hop songs, including songs about Newton's law or things like that, which shall allow ultimately increase the representation of Black voice in education, which will lead to a more positive representation of Black Americans in United States society and in politics and business. Additionally, hip hop artists such as JayZ and Diddy have used their voice to promote business through their songs and platform. According to Forbes, JayZ is worth $1.3 billion. He has not acquired all his wealth, however, from music. You may ask how he's acquired all his wealth. Well, according to he has acquired his wealth through real estate, Roc Nation, and Marcy Venture Partners. Roc Nation is an entertainment empire where he has sports, music, and entertainment artists, such as comedians and stuff like that. His real estate is all over the world. He has multiple things of real estate, and Marcy Venture Partners allows him to purchase companies and have stake in companies such as Uber and Tidal, and sports and restaurants. By him using his wealth and his platform to buy businesses and promote businesses, even through his songs, he's able to create a more positive representation of Black Americans in the United States society and just in business in general, which is a predominantly white-dominated field. He's allowing a more positive representation in just business in general, which ultimately will lead to a more positive representation in education and politics. Additionally, according to Forbes, Rihanna is worth $1.7 billion. She's only acquired $210 million of these dollars from music. Now, the rest of her money comes from Fenty Beauty, which she is the founder of and owns 50% stake in the company. She's used this company to create not only to increase the representation of Black Americans, but also Black women in the United States society, which has ultimately increased the voice of Black women, which is a predominantly looked over group in society. Additionally, according to the source provided by College Board, the Holdout by Norman Rockwell It shows a woman being surrounded by men in a jury room. Now you may ask, well, how does this have anything to relate with hip hop and business? Well, JayZ and Rihanna, they were the first people at the table of business for Black Americans. They were one of the first who were able to start creating their own table. Similarly to this woman, how she is being bold enough and using her platform and using her confidence to create a. She's using her platform to allow herself to create a more positive representation of women in society. JayZ and Rihanna have done the same thing. Additionally, hip hop artists have used politics have positively influenced politics in America through elections and social justice movements. As we've seen in this voter registration graph by the Pew Research Center, it shows the change in voting registration per race. As we've seen right here, it shows that 25% of all Black voters in Georgia, which turned to a blue state this past election, increased by 25%. This is the highest change in voter registration and voting in Georgia since 2016. This could be attributed to many things, such as Killer Mike and T.I. using their platform to promote politics and using their money and capital they acquired from business to allow them to have a more positive, allow them to use their platform to hold voting registrations and similar things to that. Additionally, Kendrick Lamar is one of the conscious hip hop artists of the time. He uses his platform to talk about social movements such as police violence and gang violence in the inner cities. As we've seen in this verse from his song XXX, it states, "Ain't no black power when your baby killed by a coward." Now, what this quote is referencing is to how Black children and Black Americans in general are being killed by police and by their own people and by just people in general. And by him talking about this creates conversation. It allows conversation to be had. And some people may say that hip hop is bad and negative, and that it creates a negative connotation. That can be seen in James' thing. It shows a negative shooting, but it doesn't. However, I would argue that just like people as we see in the picture, it shows that two people are fighting through violence. That's the argument, is that hip hop increases violence. However, I would say that, as you can be seen in the back of the painting, it shows that the sit-in encounters during the 60s and how hip hop has actually united society in general. Thank you, and do you have any questions?
I do have two questions for you.
Yep.
First up, how valid and reliable are the sources that you use, and then how do you know?
The reliability and availability of my sources were very reliable. I would say about like a 1 to 2 stance. For example, Dr. Christopher Edmund is a professor at University of South California and works with education and does other ventures out there. So I know sources like those are valid and valuable.
Okay, and if you had any additional time, what additional research would you have done?
I would actually have researched more on the fact of political hip hop, because I feel like that's the driving force of I would focus more on political hip hop, like examples of social movements and stuff like that, and how it's actually increased voting registration, like in Georgia. It's like near the end of my research, I found that chart relating to the voter registration, and I want to know a little bit more about if that's just in Georgia in general, or if it's across the United States or even the globe.